Om Ayahi Varade Devi Drakshare Brahmavadini Gayatri Chandasang Mata Brahmajani Namastute. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrittor Ma Amritangamaya Aviravir Maedi Rudra Jakte Dakshinamukham Tenamang Pahi Nityam Tenamang Pahi Nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Divine Mother of the Universe, reveal Thyself in our heart and in our midst. We invoke Thy presence amidst us. Thou art the supreme word of the Scriptures. Thou art the embodiment of knowledge and liberation. Thou art the supreme bridge to immortality. Lead us from unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death, disease and suffering to immortality. Manifest Thyself in us through and through, and protect us with Thy compassionate face. Om Peace, peace be unto us, peace be unto all living beings. As we begin the service of our new season, I offer my hearty welcome to all of you. And this season would be crowded with events almost throughout the year, and I hope you will enjoy in participating in those events, because this is the 100-year completion of Swami Vivekananda's coming to the Parliament of Religions and to America. Our subject this morning, the facing life the Vedanta way. I'll read to you a few lines from Swami Vivekananda. Vedanta advises us how to work by giving up the apparent and the illusory world. What is meant by that? Seeing God everywhere. Thus do you work. Desire to live 100 years. Have all earthly desires, if you wish. Only deify them. Convert them into heaven. Have the desire to live a long life of helpfulness, of blissfulness, and activity on earth. Thus, working, you will find the way out. There is no other way. If a man plunges headlong into the foolish luxuries of the world without knowing the truth, he has missed his footing. He cannot reach the goal. And if a man curses the world, goes into a forest, mortifies his flesh, and kills himself little by starvation, makes his heart a barren waste, kills out all feeling, becomes harsh, stern, and dried up, that man also has missed the way. These are the two extremes, the two mistakes at either end. Both have lost the way. Both have missed the goal. So work, says Vedanta, putting God in everything, knowing Him to be everything. Work incessantly, holding life as something deified as God Himself, and knowing that this is all we have to do. This is all we should ask for. God is in everything. Where shall we go to find Him? He is already in every work, in every thought, in every feeling. Thus knowing we must work, and this is the way. There is no other. The fact of work will not bind us. We have seen how false desires are the cause of all misery and evil we suffer. But when they are thus deified, purified, through God, they bring no evil, they bring no misery. Those who have not learned this secret will have to live in a demonical world until they discover it. Many do not know what an infinite mine of bliss is in them, around them, and everywhere. They have not yet discovered it. What is a demonical world? Vedanta says ignorance. We are dying of thirst, sitting on the banks of the mightiest river. We are dying of hunger, sitting near heaps of food. Here is the blissful universe, yet we do not find it. We are all in it at all the time. We are always mistaking it. Religions propose to find this out for us. The longing for this blissful universe is all in hearts. It has been the search of all nations. It is the goal of all religion, and the ideal is expressed in various languages in different religions. It is only the difference of language that makes all these apparent divergences. One expresses a thought in one way, another a little differently. Perhaps each is meaning exactly what the other is expressing in a different language. The word Vedanta is a very broad word, but we are using in a context what Swami Vivekananda meant. It is the final teaching of the Vedas. The first teaching of Vedanta is how to make worldly fulfillment and success, to make life happier, better, meaningful. But then in the conclusion, it says that these are very frail remedies, somewhat like band-aids, not cure. Real remedy, it suggests, with that final teaching. It gives spiritual interpretation of the universe and man, as opposed to mechanistic and mere humanistic interpretation. Its conclusions are holistic, and its remedies are tested by time and are realistic. It emphasizes the cash value of the teaching. Religions generally emphasize the credit value, what will happen after death. Many religions, even until today, they often have tried to explain away the world rather than explaining it. Even Vedanta before Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda was almost an obsolete teaching. It became divorced from the values and virtues of life. It became a tool of intellectual enjoyment for a limited few. The first proposal of Vedanta that life is a puzzle. To the ignorant, it is optimistic, full of hope. To the middle-aged, it is doubtful. And for those who have lived longer, it is often appearing as pessimistic. To quote Shakespeare's words, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The prophets give us realistic pictures, but that realistic not always palatable. We have to remember, the prophet does not tell us what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. They do not give us what we want, but what we need. That is why a prophet in his own time is often ignored, neglected. Often he becomes a martyr. To Buddha, it is the ocean of sorrow. If all the tears which came out of human eyes had been kept collected, that water would have exceeded all the waters of the ocean. To Shankaracharya, it is a tree being constantly shaken by false hopes and illusions. But all the creatures of the universe, they are anxious to build a nest in that tree. Socrates, it is a puzzle. You know the old story, a young man wanted to know whether it would be good for him to marry or not. So he came to Socrates for the advice. So he said, well, go ahead. If the girl turns out to be good, you'll be a happy man. Otherwise, you will be a philosopher like me. That was his answer. To the Vedic seers, it is a river. Its one side is known, the other side is unknown. We see the same river, but not the same water. It has high winds, shifting currents, countless whirlpools. To Sri Krishna, it is a battleground of two opposing forces. It describes that in the Bhagavad Gita. To Bhartrihari, a 13th century saint poet, it is a puzzle. There is fear, anxiety, uncertainty at every step. In enjoyment, there is the fear of disease. In beauty, the fear of old age. In scholarship, fear of the opponent. In wealth, fear of the robbers. In health, the fear of the disease. Everything in this world is fraught with fear, like a fishbone stuck into the throat. So the young dream, the middle-aged doubt, the old chew the cud. The human individual is born crying, he lives complaining, and he dies disappointed. This is the picture in realistic terms, no matter how we make it nice. Often people say, is it not the picture which is morbid, pessimistic, life-denying? But then, until you have known the truth, this is the fact. How do people respond to the challenges of life? We know, however we may say life has its charms, beauties, promises and prospects. You see millions of paperbacks are coming out. How to cope with life. Probably have noticed the term. You do not cope with something if you enjoy, as if you are tolerating. So this indicates that we are not on the right track. The materialist seeks elimination of evil by material means. He wants to build a kingdom of heaven on earth. The prophetist waits for a millennium or a Messiah to come. You will find there are many messianic teachings. They always, both in East and West, waiting for a Messiah to come. The pragmatist tries to make hay while the sun shines. He said, why think of all this? Eat, drink, make merry. Philosopher, he tries to explain it away. Often he creates more problems than solutions. Often he says, the solution to a problem changes the problem. Problem does not go away. The transcendentalist says, get out. He teaches us to be like the 3 Japanese monkeys, don't hear evil, see evil, and talk evil. The ascetic, he says, like a sour grape, the fox in Aesop's fable. Because it could not be reached, it should be given up. In general, 3 responses we get. Give up, get out, give in, get drowned, fight and bleed. But none of them really is giving us real solution. Seers of Vedanta give a hard look to these questions. According to them, life and the problems go together. As Swami Vivekananda says, the wall does not make any mistake. A cow does not tell a lie. But they are wall and cows. Only human being makes mistakes. When there are no problems, there is no life. Problem and solution must coexist together. If there is no problem, there is no solution. Both must be taken. It does not promise us a problem-free life. That is possible only in a fairy tale. It does not promise us good without evil, birth without death, pleasure without pain, youth without old age, health without decay. It describes life as a flowing river, as earlier I said. It has 6 changes, 4 stages, and inexorable pairs of opposites. It says, if life is a river, some sit on the bank and cry, seeing the dreadful waves. See on the ocean front, huge waves, ocean is coming, almost is going to wipe you away. But if you carefully see, some people are there, they're surfing. They do not want the ocean to recede. Then there would be no joy of surfing. There are some birds, when the tornadoes come, when all the other birds they go to their nest, they come out that time. That is their pleasure. So it says, some sit on the bank and cry. Their life ends in vain. Some, getting scared, want to go back to their mother's arm. Some wait for the river to be calm and tranquil, which never happens. And some look for hired hand who will carry them across. And some jump ahead without knowing, without preparation. They come to grief. Vedic seers long ago said, if you want to cross and must cross the river, then you must master the rules of navigation. Study the nature of the river. You must live with the river and overcome it. There is no easy solution, shortcut. It is said that somebody, to illustrate the point, our so-called optimism, how it becomes foolish, that how do you know that you are getting old? Somebody gave us some tips. Number one, you sink your teeth in a steak and they stay there. Number two, you have too much room in the house but not enough in the medicine cabinet. Second. Third, you know all the answers but nobody asks the questions. Four, you turn out the lights for economic reasons, not for romantic reasons. Five, you sit in a rocking chair but can't get it going. Six, your knees buckle but your belt won't. Seven, the gleam in your eyes is from the sun hitting your bifocals. Eight, your little black book contains only names ending in MD. 9, your children begin to look middle-aged. 10, you finally reach the top of the ladder and find it leaning against the wrong wall. By that you know you have grown old. So it is said that there is no such thing as utopia. Psychologists tell us it is bad to be orphan, terrible to be only child, dangerous to be youngest, crashing to be middle, and taxing to be the oldest. There is no way except to be born as an adult. But these solutions do not give us real answers. So life, if it is a river, we must accept as it is. Here comes two views. The old Eastern view of Vedanta, and the other is the Western outlook of life. When we say Vedanta way, Vedanta is not a new religion. It cannot be called even a philosophy. We have to remember. That is the basic teaching of all the religions, major religions of the world. It was never practiced before. The land of its first research, India, it forgot the teaching. It became dead. The old teaching you will find in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is telling, don't act like an un-Aryan. The two aspects of reality, the transcendental absolute and the relative, they become separated. The East forgot the real meaning of Vedanta. Often its contemplative appeal became morbid. Many medieval thoughts, East and West, they began to think about the sorrowing and sinning. If the ultimate reality is pure consciousness, designated by the Upanishads as Brahman, then the relative universe is also Brahman. If the Sanskrit verse says that all this is verily Brahman, then the Mahavakya, that thou art, is also equally true. The criticism of the West is that the so-called Vedanta of India, it is not Vedanta. In trying to explain the world, it explained it away. In trying to be disinterested, it became uninterested. It forgot the precision of thinking and love of nature, the two which gave West development of science and technology. In trying to forget reality and God in heaven, it forgot the reality on earth. for thousands of years, being under foreign rule, domination, it forgot the adventure, the manliness, the self-confidence, and self-esteem. Swami Vivekananda brought that two views together. Don't make a mistake that what Swami Vivekananda gave Vedanta is the same which was being practiced in India. In fact, perhaps Vedanta would be a discovery of the West through Swami Vivekananda. It became alive. His terrific Western spin which he gave, adding the cash value, the humanistic value, made it new. That Vedanta, I believe, is not being practiced in a wide scale. It has just begun. Vedanta says, ultimate truth is scientific. Two views of science, repeatability and cash value. Its laws are based not on persons but principles, tested and verified through time. It is universal. It applies to all countries, all conditions, and all people. It is pragmatic. What happens here must be important before what happens afterward. 3 men got sick in a hospital. Doctors thought their end was near. The compassionate doctor came and asked each one the last wish. The first man said he wanted to see the family. The second one said he wanted to see the priest. When he came to the third man, he said he wanted to see a second doctor. That testifies the pragmatic view of Vedic seer. One who has no here, he has no hereafter. One who is not fit for this world, he is not fit for heaven either. These two views, that verification, cash value, humanistic attitude of religious teaching, that make a religion livable. When a teaching is not lived by a larger number of people in society, that teaching becomes dead. And because the original old Vedanta was not lived by masses, it almost became extinct. But this could not be understood by all. Even in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, only he selected Vivekananda to understand that and propagate that. It is a bread of the strong. It is a teaching of the vigorous. It says, take life as it stands. Its authority is on credentials of direct experience and verifiability. Its 4 basic pillars: a non-dual view of the reality, oneness of existence, the divinity of the soul, and harmony of religion. Reality is a non-dual, one, all-pervading. The soul is divine. Our purity is innate. We do not acquire it by bathing in sacred water or making pilgrimage or through prayer or contemplation. Religious disciplines only dispel the doubt that you are not a sinner or not a bad person, you are holy. That is all we gain. We regain our faith in our innate divinity. The difference between a saint and a sinner has more faith in his sin, and a saint has more faith in his saintliness. That faith we acquire. Somebody asked him, the chronicler of the gospel, what did you gain by coming to Sri Ramakrishna, hearing his words those 6 to 7 years? Can you please give us one word what you gained? In answer, he said, faith. Faith in his possibility and inner divinity. When you go to a holy man, not a saint, what do we gain? We gain the conviction that we have also possibility. We are not doomed. The rest of the world telling you are doomed, you have no hope. A saint gives us hope, possibility, a future. Third is the oneness of existence. The whole universe, there is only one light manifesting in different ways. Subhuman, human, superhuman. You cannot enjoy life by separating yourself from the rest of the universe. You cannot be an island of prosperity surrounded by sea of sorrow. You must find your connection with the rest of the universe. That is the basis of all ethics and morality. Ethics and morality, they teach us to keep our sense of illusion and separativeness under control. They teach us to share with the rest of the universe what we have. You must give. It says the 4 values of life. First one is the moral value, second one is worldly value, third is ethical value, fourth is spiritual value. By the Sanskrit words, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma means sense of righteous conduct. By that, you find your connection with the society and the people around you. A person, in the first stage of life, that person must master this quality. To gain mastery over secular knowledge, which will solve the material problems of house, food, property, plus spiritual grounding, which will prepare him to make the adventure, the surfing in the ocean. Artha is worldly prosperity and fulfillment, without which life becomes grey, barren. A man without money is nobody and nothing. He must have some fulfillment. He must have something to offer to the world. When you cannot offer anything to the world through your talent, through your accomplishment, through your vision, you feel a backlash. You suffer from terrible inferiority complex. So you must develop something to offer, to be needed by others. That's the great virtue of life. Nature teaches us. When we are born, until you become adult, nature gave you. Parents gave you. Trees and plants gave you. Fellow humans gave you. With the expectation that you prepare yourself, when you grow adult, you start giving back, returning. By that, you become free from sense of guilt, sense of indebtedness. Much of the feeling of regret comes that I could not give back. The two form a balance of life. Finally, the harmony of religion. Vedanta does not care whether a person is a Hindu or a Buddhist. What have you got? A person can claim he goes to the masses 10 times, he meditates 24 hours, but what has happened? Is he as raw as before? Is there any manifestation? If you see a person, he says he is dispassionate, he is a man of renunciation. But should you call him a spiritual man? If he is a man of renunciation, then what is his positive side? If that spirit of renunciation not matched by his spirit of service for self-dedication for the good of all beings, that renunciation is false. Passion for God has its counterpart in dispassion for worldly things. Nobody can give up desires and dispassionate unless he has something better and superior. So movement of life is like the movement of the sun. Cash value of any teaching, or from the pragmatic point of view, is judged by asking yourself two questions. How do we deal with desires? So long they are there, how do we deal with death and the tragedies until they have come? The first answer, Vedanta says, desires cannot be crushed, cannot be postponed indefinitely, cannot be fulfilled completely. When unbridled, they lead to disintegration. When repressed, they heighten the awareness of the object coveted and desired. So the only way left, you reduce the desires to the economy of your physical and mental need. Death. To ignore it is to live in a false optimism. To avoid, not possible. To escape is to be haunted by it. Some say, like Bertrand Russell, it is a reasonable finale to be accepted. Zeno said it is inevitable, must be endured. And Aristippus says, forget it in the urgency of the present. A poet, Omar Khayyam, says, it is a distant drum. Why worry about it now? A Freud will say, do not cry like a child in dark where there is no one to listen. Death wish, thanatos, is hidden in the life wish, libido, or the eros. For the seers of Vedanta, death is part of life. It is one of the changes. Death makes life possible. Death holds the secret of immortality, as described in the Upanishads. Every day we die in a measured way, in sleep, in meditation. In a controlled way, we induce death, physical death in our system, so that we will revive and come out refreshed. Walking out of an old house or a broken car and getting a new house and a new car. Death began as soon as we were born. Life begins with this birth. Physical life ends with death. But real life continues until you attain the final truth. So face the fear of uncertainty and unknown, Vedanta says, by knowing this hidden self. Keep the flame burning by feeding it with prayers, austerities, self-control. The Upanishad says, even if we can roll up the sky like a piece of leather, there would be no end of sorrow until you have known this great all-pervading self. Bhagavad Gita says, one who has no contact with this self has no peace, and one without peace has no happiness. Finally, Vedanta says, why cry over the impossible? Why try to reach out for the unnatural? Why assume absolute responsibility for every event over which you have the control? This is why shed tears over the limitations which are natural, universal, and unescapable. It says, if you want happiness, reduce your dependencies, physical, mental, spiritual. All dependencies, they bring misery. And all self-dependencies bring happiness. Sarvam paravasam dukkham, goes the ancient proverb. If you want peace, cut down your ego. If you want security of life, physical, mental, have control over the organ of sex and palate. If you want to overcome death, learn to die voluntarily, daily, briefly during your exercise, spiritual exercises. If you want to make friends, be one. If you hope for the best, be prepared for the worst. Stop blaming. Integrate your goals. Mature your ego. Keep the sword of dispassion. Cut the growth of ego. Guard yourself by non-attachment. By acting on the present, know your best friend is your own personal experience. Work out your salvation. Change yourself if you want to change the world. Wake up. Walk on. Forge ahead. And move forward. Face the fact that there is no problem-free life. Face the problems by being alive in all dimensions. Face the drifting of life by being goal-oriented and grounded. Face changes by falling back on the changeless which is hidden within you. Face the passion of optimism by realism. Face the past by acting on the present. Face uncertainty of life by developing insurance. Emotional insurance, spiritual insurance, physical. Face the nightmares of life by waking up. So long you are dreaming, there will be no end of nightmares. Live the life. Learn to grow, change, mature. There is no such thing as a vicarious living. Live not as a burden, not as a thorn or a liability, but as a blessing, a solace to all. When you were born, you cried. Everyone rejoiced. Live in a way that when you die, everybody will cry and you will rejoice. Thank you. Om Jananing Saradang Deving Ramakrishnan Jagatgurung Padapadme Tayo Sritta Pradavami Muhur Muhur. We bow down to Mother Sarada and the great Master Sri Ramakrishna. We take refuge at their feet and bow down to them over and over again. Om, peace, peace be unto us, unto all living beings.